Hi everybody, Damien here at Slotcar. I've got a little Scalextric Mini here. You can see I've taken the body off. I'm going to chip this for Scalextric Digital. Here's the chip I've got here. We need to make room for it in here to nestle it in beside the motor. To do that, we're actually going to take the navigator out of this car, and I've just done 3 others of these, and I've taken the bottom of the interior here, bottom of that passenger seat out to make room for the chip, so that we can nestle it in here beside the motor. The other way we could have done it is behind the motor here, but it was an easier job to settle it in beside the motor. Now, since this is a car that I'm going to be using magless, I'm going to take the magnet out now. So I give the chassis a wee flex, and one end there's just popped up, so we can whip it out. And at this time I'm also going to put a bit of lead in there. We're going to do this to give a bit extra weight to the car, since the magnet's out and we're not going to have a lot of downforce. I've got some lead here. I'm just peeling the peeling the backing off the sticky adhesive out, and I'm going to put that in where the magnet was, just in the same place. Just take that wire out of the way, and that'll stay in there nicely. That'll give us a little bit of weight, help keep the car on track. Now, because we're going to put the chippers alongside the motor, we want to make sure that we don't have any electrical shorts. So I'm going to use some insulation tape on the motor can so that we can avoid that happening. So I've just cut a piece of insulation tape here, and I've slide it down to the chassis there and put that alongside the motor. And that's just going to protect us, like I say, from shorts. Now this car too, you'll see I've taken the tread off the front wheels here. I've trued those a little bit. I put them onto the rear axle, and I've given them a spin on the tyre true machine, and I'm actually going to do the back wheels as well, but I haven't quite done that yet. Okay, so like I say, I've done a few of these already, and for the others, all I did is I laid the chip down beside the motor this way. I tucked the lead for the LED in behind the chip and put it in there, and then that LED I put through the hole that was there to take the screw to have when the car came out of the case, when it was screwed into the case. So we actually need to make that hole a little bit bigger, so we're going to use the electric drill to do that. This is a 3mm drill bit, and I'll just poke it in that same hole. Nice and easy. And the LED, we'll just test fit it, make sure it goes in there okay. There it is, goes in the hole, and actually protrudes just about the right amount. So it's actually, this car is very easy to set up the LED in. And we're just going to hot glue that in place. So now that we've got our LED in the right place here, I'm just going to put some hot glue down into the gap on each side. Can be a little bit tricky to get into the gap, but there we go, we've done it. We've done it. So that's perfect, and we'll give that a little bit of time to cool down. I'll just hold the LED in place until that does cool down. Now we're going to glue the chip in place. We're going to use hot glue again. I'm just going to lay these LED lead wires down underneath the chip and get it in the right place. And for the other 3 cars, and this one will be the same, the back of the chip is just a few millimeters forward from the end of the motor can. So I'll get that lined up there. Bit of hot glue along the motor can, and then I'll push the chip into place, make sure that the wires are sitting where I want them, and I've just pushed the top of the glue down onto the chip as well, just to keep it all nice and flat and flush, so there's not too much sticking up over the top of the motor can where it has to fit into the car. Take a little bit off there. Okay, so there's our chip in place. Now with this car, the wires that come from the guide and go to the motor, and the wires that go to the lights look very similar. So we've got to make sure we get the right ones, and the ones that I want to pick out to cut to splice the chip in are the ones that come from the guide. So just making sure I've got the right two sticking up here to cut, which is this one and this one, and I'm going to snip those off with some side cutters. Just better check I've got the right ones. Yes, I have. So now I'm going to strip a little bit of the sheathing off each of these ends, and I'm going to tin them with solder. So now that I've got the wires stripped, and it's pretty hard to strip them because there's not a lot, they're very short wires, it's very hard to get in there, and I did it with my teeth, maybe not the best way, but when there's limited space sometimes it's the easiest way. Now just putting a tiny little piece of solder on the end of each of these wires so it makes them quick and easy to solder and connect to each other. Just heating up the wire first and then applying the solder onto the wire so that the wire soaks up the solder and it sticks well to it. And I'll need to do the same to the chip leads as well, so that they're tinned. Now I'm not going to worry about the green and yellow wires yet that go to the guide, because those wires I'm going to cut to a shorter length so that we don't have so much wire to try and fit into the car, try and find room for. So I'm just doing these ones first that go to the motor. So these ones will pull forwards. I'll put a little bit of shrink tubing on them first, and then I'm going to solder them to the wires that go to the motor, not the wires that go to the guide. So here we are taking the black and red wires from the end of the chip, and they're going to the leads that go to the motor, and I'll put a little bit of heat shrink on there so that I can cover the joins after I've soldered them. So I'm going to solder the wires together, red to red and black to black in this case. There's just enough room to make these things all meet up, luckily. Otherwise you could just put a little bit of an extension into the wire. There we are. Now we've got those on there, a little bit of heat shrink there for insulation, and that's all good. What we need to do now is measure out these two, the green and yellow wires that are going to connect here to the guide wires. And like I was saying before, we want them as short as possible so there's not too much to try and find room for and space for once we try and stick it all back together. So I'll cut those off there. We'll strip and tin the ends and solder those up. We're going to heat shrink those as well. Okay, so we've got a little bit of heat shrink resting on the wires there, and we can now connect these up to the guide wires. So there's the green wire soldered onto the black guide wire, and the yellow wire soldered onto the red guide wire. Now I'll push the heat shrink up and make sure that's properly in place as well. To fit all the wires in underneath the body, we are going to need to make sure they're all sitting in the right place and tucked in neatly and so forth. However, we will still need to trim the interior of the car to make them all fit. Now it's the passenger side of the car that's going to need attention here. Now I'm going to trim all this out with the Dremel underneath. The passenger will come out, he's not going to be required. So let's start cutting. Yep, see you later. Passenger with his, or navigator with his notes there. He's history. Now, to make sure that we've got room for the wires, I'm also going to need to make sure I take out this little bit here. Let it come into focus. I need to take out this little bit here along the side of the body as well. And what I found with the others is that because of the capacitor on the chip, taking a little bit out of this this rear section here also makes a big difference to getting it to fit easily. And once we clean that up a little bit, that's probably about all we need to do. Trying to fit it all together, I found that just this little bit sticking out here is rubbing on the capacitor, so I need to take that out as well. You notice I've tried to leave a little bit of material in there where the roll cage comes in and locates there, just to make sure that doesn't wobble around once the job's done. So I haven't screwed it together yet, but the great news is it all fits. Everything meets up perfectly. It is a wee bit of a tight fit. And I can really try and push the wires into place a little bit better to try and achieve a slightly better fit. But I'm pretty pleased that the job's gone well. I'm going to true these ties and I'll try it out on track tonight. Thank you for watching. If you intend to chip any small cars yourself, just take your time, take it easy, look at where everything goes, and usually you can make everything fit.